I am Mary, Mary of Nazareth, daughter of Anne and Joachim. According to what has been written, I was immaculately conceived. But is this the truth? My mother was a woman, like any other. So was I, even though I am considered the mother of God. All because of Jesus. Jesus, my son, whom I love more than love itself. I could have refused him. I was pregnant, but not married. I risked dishonoring my family. I had a lover, Joseph. We were engaged. Then one afternoon, we found ourselves alone. When my mother noticed I wasn't menstruating, she panicked. She mentioned it to my father. My father was furious. You should have been careful. Yes, I confess. It was my fault, not Joseph's. It was I who encouraged him. It was too late to repent. We had to get married as soon as possible. We couldn't have the village gossiping. Day after day, I became a woman people respected. My son would have a father. My reputation wouldn't be tarnished, nor would my son's reputation be tarnished. You, women of today, how I envy you. You can have a child without being forced to live with a man. You can raise a child alone. I must not speak as a feminist. I don't want to tarnish the image of me that has been transmitted for more than 2,000 years. If I am a woman who is worshipped, we have to thank visual artists. Call me what you want. Mary, Marianne, Mariam, the Virgin Mary, the Blessed Virgin. People say I am the most celebrated woman on the planet. I don't want to shock you. I don't want to create a scandal. I simply want to tell you about the price I've had to pay for the veneration I am receiving. There were times when I would forget the woman I am. Rest assured, I'm not complaining. I want you to hear about the real woman. The woman behind those images in those churches, on the walls of those museums. People know very little about me. Men barely mention me in the Gospels. They write that I am the mother of Jesus, but nothing more. My son took all the space. I'm not blaming him. It's quite normal. He is the founder of a religion. True. Christianity doesn't give much space to women. The apostles could have tried a little harder. I won't insist. I don't want to sound too aggressive. I was loved when I was a child. They called me the miracle girl. God's gift. My mother was a housewife, like many mothers. My father was a rabbi. Then, my mother, an elderly woman, got pregnant. When I was 3 years old, I was brought to the Temple of Jerusalem. They said I stayed there 12 years. But that's not the truth. I enjoyed running, dancing, laughing. I played with the neighbors' children. I visited my aunts and cousins. And I helped my mother around the house. My mother and father would never have agreed to send me away. One day I would marry, have a couple of children. I was actually not a rebellious teenager. I was a pretty traditional girl. I loved my mother. I would grow to be just like her. And I embraced my fate as a woman. I had a happy childhood. And as a woman, I faced each and every obstacle. No, my son did not take after me. I had a happy childhood. As a young woman, I faced each and every obstacle. I was not married. I got pregnant. I was about to give birth. So I was sitting on a donkey, a baby in my arms. Joseph was leading the way to Egypt in a terrible heat. I was worried about having given birth to a child that was going to grow up to be different from other boys. My son, his public life, the passion, the crucifixion. Nothing has been spared me. The hurting, the pain, the suffering. It was terrible. I didn't give birth in Nazareth. I was in Bethlehem. Augustus, the emperor, called for a census. And because Joseph belonged to the family of David, we had to run away. Without my mother's assistance, I never would have survived. I felt like my body was being torn in two. In each cell of my body, it felt like I was carrying God's anger against Eve. I was scared my baby was going to die. I was scared I was going to die. Fortunately, I was not alone. Joseph's kind family provided for us. In a large manger, women comforted us. Joseph stood by my side night and day. Something other men would not have done. Joseph insisted. He wanted to be close to me. He held my hand, and I held his tightly. His whispers were soft. When the baby came into this world, Joseph took Jesus into his arms, and the midwife cut his umbilical cord. I was no different than any woman who gives birth to a baby. Giving birth provided me with a sense of wonder. I cradled Jesus in my arms. I was ecstatic. At the beginning of my pregnancy, I had a dream. An angel appeared to me and said, "You're going to give birth to a baby boy." And then he said, "This boy is the Son of God." How could I not love my child? I whispered to him, I pampered him. I held him in my arms, tight, tight. Joseph protested. "You're being too overprotective. Why don't you let him become a man?" Jesus was a gifted child. He was a solitary boy. He didn't play with the other children. He preferred to learn his father's trade. In fact, he became a carpenter, just like Joseph. Jesus, he was a dreamer. Jesus was an independent child. He was a peaceful child. Jesus could not stand violence. I was proud of my son, Jesus. As a child, Jesus would ask me, "Why don't children ask any questions? Why are some persons evil? Why did the Romans settle here? Why do some believe in more than one God?" Jesus was an intelligent child. He wasn't an ordinary child. I thought he was going to become a poet. But Joseph had high expectations for Jesus. One Saturday, we visited the temple. Jesus turned away. He was 12 years old. We were worried sick. When we found him, he was in deep conversation with a couple of rabbis. We stood in awe. On our way home, I asked, "Are you thinking of becoming a rabbi?" He answered, "No. I want to save people." The high priest asked me one day, "Does your child think he is the Messiah of the people of Israel?" I wanted time to stop. I wanted Jesus to stay a child forever. Nothing would turn out as I had hoped. A mother's intuition. A mother knows what to expect from her child. A mother knows to expect the worst. Why didn't they flog me instead of my son? Why didn't they crucify me? Take my life. Spare my sons. I began to doubt the goodness of God. I began to doubt the existence of God. I lost my faith. Almost. Standing in front of Pontius Pilate, Jesus knew what awaited him if found guilty. But why didn't he speak? Why didn't he fend for himself? The end was atrocious. This couldn't be God. It was he, Jesus. Jesus wanted it. He wanted death. I, who people call a saint, full of grace, blessed among women, I am a mother who feels responsible for the fate of her child. I thought I was going to die, but I didn't. I felt peace. My son was going to heaven. I am Mater Dolorosa, the icon that travels through time. I am the woman of La Pietà. I am witness to my child who endured pain and was murdered. I carried my son on my knees. I cradled my son's wounded body. I covered my son's face with kisses. And I cried and cried for my son. I think of the mothers of Playa de Mayo in Argentina. I think of the African American mothers. I think of the indigenous mothers. I think of the mothers in Iran and how they all suffer knowing that their sons and daughters are being tortured and killed. I could not distinguish fact from fiction. Was it I that appeared at Lourdes? Was it I that appeared to the children of Fatima? I will not tell you if I perform miracles. Legends are not important. I will not ridicule visions, nor will I justify beliefs. I am helpless. I cannot do a thing for these mothers in distress. I can be a symbol for suffering mothers, a symbol that brings comfort to these suffering mothers. Mothers, they say, are endowed with an acute sense of grief. I am no exception. When a mother sees her child in a demonstration being beaten by police officers or run over by a tank, she feels grief. A mother feels shame when she believes she does not measure up to the challenge. Mothers express these sentiments to me in their prayers. Mothers ask me to pray for them. Mothers beg me to forgive them for being inadequate mothers. I cannot change the plight of mothers. I listen with compassion. Mothers need compassion, much compassion. I continued to love my son Jesus intensely. I was beside him until his moment of death. I'm not a perfect person, even if people represent me as a perfect mother. We humans have a need for idols. It's part of our nature. These are desperate times. This is why I refuse to destroy the stories about me. At my death, people claimed that my body did not look dead. People whispered that my beloved son helped me out of my grave and I rose to heaven. The assumption. This story has become dogma. I will not negate it. If you have faith, this means everything to you. I don't present myself as an example. I don't want to be a messenger. I'm neither a mediator nor a fixer. I'm not the queen of the world. May no woman experience what I went through. I am a woman from another time. I am the woman who walks beside you. I am the woman who weeps at the cruelty of men and women. You're in pain. I can see that. I offer you comfort. I offer you hope. I open my arms to you. Welcome.